Welcome to the Lotco Business Podcast, a show all about helping you as a retailer, brand or creative understand the actual business side of running your business. I offer straightforward practical advice about the nitty-gritty of making money from your creative passion. We will be covering bite-sized business and marketing lessons as well as interviews with experts and trailblazers in the fashion, homewares and design industries. My name is Melissa Robbins. I'm a business coach, colour-loving, non-coffee drinking Melburnian. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Melissa Robbins. I'm super excited today, as I am with every guest that I have on here. But Gemma, I have today with me Gemma from TalkShop Retail, who is a Melbourne-based sustainable VM consultant, creating VM for spaces in retail that is sustainable and they leave an impression on people and not on the planet. Thank you for joining me here today, Gemma.
Oh, thank you, Mel, and so nice to have a conversation, as always, with you.
Thank you so much. So we obviously, not obviously, I say obviously to people when it's not obvious to everyone, but we were on the business couch together for Life in Style and, yeah, just really connected about, our passion and love for retail, and I love what the journey you've moved on now and where you're going, and tell me a little bit about what you do.
Well, TalkShop Retail started as a business that was going to be a one-stop, to build a community for small and medium-sized retailers to get support and resources because it can be quite lonely out there. Launched the business in October 2019, and I'm sure everybody's cringing all at once because retail obviously became fairly non-existent from March the following year. So as we were gaining a bit of traction, we moved the business into a Shopify, a sort of landing pages, e-commerce.
Helping everyone get online in that period where they were desperately, trying to.
That's right. We're like, okay, well, this is where they need support. This is where the small businesses need to really hustle and scramble, and a lot of them were not ready.
Yeah.
So we did that, that awful word pivot that we all got really sick of, but we did that.
Yes.
And it did move in that direction. And then we're coming back into that grassroots bricks and mortar retail space. And everyone's, gone great guns with their e-commerce, socials, it's all just part of doing business now. And
yeah, absolutely.
Really proud of our clients that just, ran with that. And I just love how that's just part of the language for small businesses now. They know what SEO is, they know what a good landing page is, and they are starting to understand that their bricks shop needs to have a very, cohesive, I suppose, appearance online as well, so that it doesn't matter where you're shopping from. And I think obviously a huge opportunity there to be making money in your sleep. But very excited now to be building the business back up in a direction of that grassroots visual merchandising.
Yeah.
And obviously now the focus for me has really become sustainable ideas, engaging customers in the community through, reuse, recycle, and just generating that connection back to, a more sort of holistic, less wasteful approach, which ultimately is, cost saving as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to touch on that as well. But with just going back a little bit to your background, so your background is VM, and you've obviously taught it as well. So you've been it's something you've been doing for a long time, isn't it?
Oh, it's actually in my blood. So my dad was an Englishman who started off in Marks and Spencer doing sort of an internship at the age of 15 in England, and worked his way up to be a buyer.
Yeah,
he moved to Australia, and he stayed in retail and had worked for Bunnings when I think it used to be called Mitre 10. And he also worked then for Myer and ended up in not-for-profit, launching, op shop and charity stores, and now still consults in that space at the age of 75. So there's a real love. And then my mum actually was a stylist as well.
Been surrounded by it your whole life.
Yeah. So it really, I think for me, there was always an interest in art, fine art, creating, and that, that love of also that pop culture. And then when I went and I suppose earned my stripes and did my trip overseas and went back to the UK, I just was like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I can bring my art into retail, and I can also use my mind to be strategic. So for me, it was the perfect marriage of the creativity, the retail, and the strategy to support businesses. And I came home and I did the visual merchandising diploma at RMIT, and all the while was working for Witchery, who then took me on as a cadet or a junior VM, I should say, and that was where I started with the title as a visual merchandiser. Worked for some of Australia's best brands, I must say. I'm extremely fortunate. I've worked for, Witchery, obviously, Blue Illusion, Sea Folly, Q and Veronica Main, just to rattle off a few.
A few of them. Well, and now you work with Melbourne-based fashion brand Elk doing their windows or their in-store VM. How does that? How often do you do that or work with them?
Yeah, so I work with Elk. They're just incredible, actually, and I think it was probably a bit of a hard sell for me to go back into being a visual merchandiser, having had my own business and been a trainer for so long in the space as well. But it really ticked a lot of boxes for me. First of all, they're just really nice people. I think
that
that's
helps
really
definitely.
important. And it's challenged me in a lot of new ways. They're creatively led, and I absolutely love that about them. It's all starts with creativity, and then it also starts there with sustainability. And obviously they're a conscious fashion brand, and they've been doing that for a really long time. And they might not shout the loudest, but they certainly are extremely aware and extremely well educated. So, yeah, for me now, it's not so much about
Well, it's not about the
turnover.
biggest budgets, is it? It's about being creative with what you can use.
Yeah, it's about being inspired by the range, and it's about engaging customers to come in and have those really important conversations. So everything I'm doing now for them, it's not about hard and fast and, it's not reactive. It's considered, and everything I do with them needs to be sustainable. So
And there's lots of choices now. Like, I mean, when I had a store, I would go to the reuse, recycle. I can't even think of all the different names of the different places I went to now, but I would find some amazing resources to create displays with. And I still have some of the stuff that I got years ago to use for wrapping and all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important to re-educate ourselves in this area. It doesn't need to be looking crafty if it's been something that's being reused or upcycled. It can actually be the life cycle of the new material that you're using. So if I am going to print a poster, which I have done recently, it's about, okay, great, who are the wholesalers that want to grab those after us? What can they use that for afterwards? It's about the whole life cycle. Is it biodegradable? How long does it take to degrade? All these things I've never been challenged to think about, or even starting with looking at materials, remnant and return jewellery and beading, or just
what can you do with the stuff that's there already?
What can you do? Yes, can we still be using all this great stuff that's in the warehouse, and how can we extend its life, and how can we then make less impact on landfill? And the environment, obviously. So really a really, really wonderful challenge. So I do work with them a couple of days a week, and then around that I also have my business, and I guess that's just another wonderful thing about them, is that it really excites them that I'm still out there, working with other businesses, and that it can be really complementary. So I think they're highly unique in their approach. On many levels.
And just on that, so you work with independent retail stores and even larger shopping centres. And it's sort of also about that. I know this myself. So it's like telling everyone else, like, what do you do for them, like, to aid that customer experience? Like, what do you? Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the smaller independent
Yeah.
businesses that I work with have a little bit of a reputation, I suppose, in my local area, which is great because this all started with wanting to give back to the community. And then most of the retailers I work for are, they've got one owner or they're family owned, and they really see the owners that engage me that they have a strength, and their strength is in A, B, and C, but
Yes.
not in visual merchandising,
Yeah.
or they're not they don't know how to do marketing or this or that, but they really know their customer and they know how to buy, and they're really good business people. So I might be doing seasonal windows. I've got some clients. My garage looks like Santa's little workshop at the moment, which for me is extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
And then I have clients where I'm consulting. So I'm coming in, I'm doing a walkthrough, which every good visual merchandiser should do before they touch a single bit of product.
Yeah.
Look at the store from the front, look at the store from the street, and really mapping out and, walking through.
Yeah. Eye lines almost, isn't it? Like, what are people noticing, or what can they see from far away?
Yeah, because the first thing is really the strategy. So walking into that store and looking at where are the hot spots or touch points, whatever you want to call them, where are people shopping from the most, what's attracting people in, looking at the best sellers, looking at the bottom sellers, and really looking at that, doing that sort of deep analysis, and then working from there, the best way to map out the store. So a fair bit of that going on, and I think that really helps those small businesses just have a plan for every busy season, and I think that takes a lot of the thinking out of it. It takes out a lot of the stress for them. They're like, yep, I know this is the window, I know this is the front table, I'm moving this to the back, I'm phasing this out, I'm going to get that in. This is the signage I need in the window so that I stop continuously purchasing new decals or changing stockists or things like that. And then it's, like I said, it just really takes out a lot of I get to do what I love for them and they can do what they love. And I think that's really wonderful, and that's what it's all
Definitely.
about.
Well, you can't be expert at everything, so I think it is knowing your strengths, and whether it's your staff or hiring others. It's like outsource the things that aren't your passion, but have a huge impact on people coming into store, as well as obviously sales within the store.
Yeah, that's it. And then just really, really focusing on where the success is, because I think a lot of small businesses go, but we do sell a few of those. It's all, is that really making you money?
Yeah.
And I think I used to work with someone, a really wonderful man, and he used to call visual merchandising the dark arts, because at the end of the day, it really is, a really
it can work magic.
wonderful creative things. And yes, there's my Christmas windows, and there's all these beautiful kind of memories that we have of visual merchandising and great movies, like Mannequin, and but in the end, it is about drawing people in to make sales, and so it is commercial, and the decisions that the businesses should be making are commercial in the end. So
And just on that, so that first element, so, foot traffic, I mean, that's obviously before people even get in the store, you've got to get them in the store. You've got to get them to stop and notice. So are there any tips that you can provide about just even that foot traffic, like how to attract people in the first place?
I've got so many tips. But I'll keep it to dot point, and then you can pick a couple that you might want to build out on if you like. So I think the most important thing is to understand who your customer is, who's your target market, what are the psychographics, what are the demographics. Jump on the Bureau of Statistics and look at some boring stuff to really understand who is driving down there, who is walking down there, and how much money are they earning, and what is the average amount of money that they're going to spend in a shop. That's really important. And what floats their boat, what gets them excited, what might catch their eye. Okay, if you're a bakery, you're really different to the toy shop. It's but you're having the same people walking past. So I think understanding your area, your person, your people, and who they're buying for and how much money on average they have to spend, because that would affect your buy, and you know more about that than me, Mel.
Yeah.
So, and I think get inspired. It's really important it is important to stay in your own lane. I really believe that, because the shop is an extension of that person. But it is important to get out of your shop and look around.
It's so important. You know what? It's so hard as a retailer. I do remember this, that it's hard to get out of, working in your store. But the times when I did do that, it just made such a difference. And as you say, it's not about copying someone else, but it's just about,
No.
like, how can I use some of the elements that you might pick up on, or what you notice when you're driving or visiting other stores, that can have an impact on what you could then apply to your store.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's how the world works. It's
Yeah.
how I work. Where do I start? I start by, maybe I'm at NGV, then maybe I'm in the city, then I'm on Pinterest, and just absorb everything around you, and you'll start to sort of, you'll feel inspired. You might get more ideas. So that's really important. And look overseas as well, if you have the resources, using Instagram in a really clever way, following hashtags instead of just accounts as well, I think.
Yeah. I love doing that, actually. When I followed VM or visual merchandising tips or something. I don't know.
Yes.
I remember seeing things pop up for that. I just love that as well.
Yeah, exactly. See what other people are doing around the world. Something I could talk about in a whole other episode is appealing to the five senses.
Yep.
So, I love that that's back. Like, I love that we're allowed to touch.
Yes.
That we're allowed to go into a shop and smell and see and hear, and taste. And these are all the things that everybody was really missing. So think about that, I guess, for these, especially the businesses that weren't open for a while. That's a really exciting thing for customers now, is like,
Yes.
they can do that again. And all those barriers have been broken, and it's actually, like a newfound discovery to be sort of really lit up with the five senses. So you don't need to sell food to appeal to taste. You can appeal to taste through smell. You can have touch points in your store where, you can have a little bit of a touch and a play. You can put things in your fitting room that inspire the customer to be a little more creative, or layer a little bit more. That all comes back to touch.
Yeah.
And sound. I mean,
makes such a difference. Just touching on that, I remember I've said to a few people, like, you go into a store and if there's no atmosphere and no element of, I don't know, obviously it's got to be relevant to the store and the brand, but it just feels flat if there's just nothing, no sound at all.
I know. Or even the radio. Like, we don't need to listen to the radio. We've got Spotify.
Yeah.
Make a playlist that doesn't just appeal to you. Let's make a playlist that appeals to everyone, or gets somebody humming, or starts a conversation, and really suits your store and your product. And that can be really hard to do, because not everyone's, into sound and into music. But I think there are really good resources out there for that as well.
Yeah, there are. There's definitely lots of things you can tap into there. But just on that, and I mean, I think you said, touched on people being able to do these things again. I think after the last few years, everyone, it sort of showcased that physical retail's not going anywhere. Like, it's never going to disappear. It's never going to be something people don't want to do. So building on that and having that, as you say, the five senses, but that's about the experiential retail, isn't it? That's like having that experience in store. So if you hear people talk about that, that's what it's sort of referring to.
That's right. And that's what gets people talking about your shop. It does. Not every sale needs to convert. Not every visit needs to convert to a sale.
Yep.
But it would be great if every visit did convert to a recommendation. And if you smell good, and if you feel good, and if you sound good, that's giving someone a really good experience. So, yes, appeal to the five senses. List them out. and then just literally I would just make a little table and start writing down things that you can do to appeal to the people that come into your store.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, a little bit of the trainer in me would say as well that it is probably a good idea to learn a little bit of design theory, just the very basic elements of design.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say to you. What are some of the things that people get wrong, or what are those? You hear about people grouping in odd numbers. Like, what are some things there that?
Well, the elements and principles of design, literally you could Google that and you could see a million really good examples.
Yeah.
And I think different things appeal to different people. And I think in retail, a lot of people think about symmetry and asymmetry. So making sure that things are balanced, or if they're not balanced, what are we drawing the eye to and what are we trying to focus on? There's also things like, rhythm and repetition. It's just getting
Yes.
really party, but there is something really beautiful about repeating the same thing, maybe in a really organised fashion in the different colour options. And it's neat, it's organised, but it's showing lots of various options.
Mm-hmm.
I think, colour and texture, I think that's an area where a lot of people, if they're not naturally or intuitively creative, can struggle a little bit. So I would say pick one or the other. Don't try and throw everything at it, because if you're doing that, then the focus of a window or a table or whatever is actually going to get lost in the noise.
Yeah.
So I would choose colour or texture if that's an area that's a little bit challenging for you. There's also things like dominance. Are we going to just show one big product in the window? Or we're going
You don't have to show with. I used to see that all the time when I'd visit stores. Yeah, people try and show every single element of what they have available in their window, but as you say, that one thing can really have an impact or draw people in to see what else there is.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people go, I'm going to give the window a theme, but instead of giving the window an actual theme, they'll just sort of throw everything in that genre in the window. So it's not really drawing a focus to the theme. That's really hard to explain. But if
it's just too much of everything, and you're like, no one knows where to focus.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to just, the color, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I'm going to put everything in for Christmas, but it's too much, and it means that people walk past feeling maybe like, that looks a bit busy. I might not walk in there. So there's ideas like, if you think about Apple, they do a really great example of scale and isolation, and they might have this enormous window, say like David Jones or Myer or Selfridges even overseas, and you're like, wow, that window's amazing because it's full of, maybe flowers or whatever, but the tiniest little thing in there is, the launching of the Apple Watch. So you're like, what is in that window? I must go and have a look. What is that? So that's really clever as well. So understanding, isolation or dominance as well is definitely something to look into. And like I said, you can find really nice, easy examples of that, and I think it will help to guide the windows and the in-store as well.
Hello, lovely. If you're looking for a way to grow your product business without relying on Facebook ads or posting daily on social media, then I invite you to register for my free masterclass. This is happening very, very soon, and inside of this masterclass, I'm sharing the strategy behind building a profitable product-based business so you can attract consistent customers and scale to 6 figures and beyond. I also emphasize how to create a sustainable long-term business, which is such an important factor for me. I'm so excited to be teaching this masterclass soon, so make sure you go and register for your free spot by heading to the link in the show notes below. How often would you recommend, like a small independent retailer, how often should they be changing their windows?
Minimum every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that one. That's a good, that's what I used to try and do.
Well, it's really overwhelming because it is a really big job. But it doesn't mean you have to change the whole entire window, but you should be changing the product within that.
Yes, yeah.
Because if you're on a strip or if you're in a local centre, you are getting a very similar passerby. It's very rare that you're going to get, people who don't come down very often to walk
Mm,
past. So change it up because people will be, oh, they've got something new. I'm going to pop in there today.
mm.
Yeah.
And I used to notice this with my store. So it doesn't have to be the product that makes the impact. So occasionally I would, often when I would change the windows, it might be like that change in full background or no background. And by like one time I had this silver sort of sparkly, and I had a children's wear store, so it was,
Mhm.
allowed to be colourful and sparkly.
Mm.
But it was just, one of those $2 sort of streamer backgrounds. But just because it was a completely different background, I
Yep.
got so many people and I'd been there for 5 years in this store, and people would say, "Oh, have you just when did you get here, or how long have you been open?" I'm like, "Oh, 5 years." It's just that change in background. A few people it just caught their eye.
Yes. Well, and I think when we talk about sustainability, we can come back to that great example because, if you are reusing what you have that made an impact, the
Mm.
average punter isn't going to remember that you're reusing.
No, of course not.
And if
Yeah.
you're worried about that, there's ways that you can alter it that are really simple to give it a little bit of a different twist.
Mm,
So maybe you're going to cut that fringing or, streamers or whatever into a zigzag, or maybe you're going to spray paint it, hot
mm.
pink, or maybe
Yeah.
you're going to thread some little things through it or something. So I think, yeah, you can definitely,
I had a
definitely.
whole lot of sand in my window one time, for I had saltwater sandals in my store, and
Mhm.
I used it later for my garden, so that was great.
Oh, there you go. Awesome.
Oh, it's hilarious. Anyway, it was heavy work, but it was fun.
Oh,
Um,
so good. Yes.
oh,
You're doing.
classic. And so that's obviously we've just been touching on the front of the store or the windows. So what about, in store, like having that, allowing customers to take that
Yeah.
journey, or having a pathway for them? Can you
Yeah.
talk a little about that?
Yeah, so my last two tips are around, the first is to guide your customer through the store.
Yeah.
So a really easy way to do this, now everybody get your paper out and your ruler and a pencil, always with a pencil so that you don't have to redo things all the time,
Yeah.
and just make a mud map of your shop. So just in squares, rectangles and circles represent exactly what you have, and write down on there what product you have in those areas. So it might be, Mel and I are talking, and it's November at the moment. So, Christmas, it's all about Christmas. So that's your front table. Let's talk about what's on your left-hand wall. Potentially that's where your customer's walking straight to. For some reason, there's a theory that most people shop to the left as they walk into the store.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so then get a few different colour pencils and draw in with a line the different ways that people can walk through your store, and even just keep it with you for a week or use a different page every day.
And
And
see what people actually do.
yes, see what they do.
Yeah, I
Where
love
do they
that.
walk? What do they touch? Like, it's just be extremely literal about it. And
Yeah.
then go, okay, right. So I've done these little maps for a week, and they can just literally be on a post-it. And I
Mm.
can see that, 9 times out of 10, this is the journey that the customer is taking
Mm.
through my shop. And I've got all my good stuff over here, but that's
Yeah.
not where they're going straight away. They're going
Yeah.
over there.
Or you
Or
might even see, as you say, like that your best sellers match up to those locations. So, yeah.
yeah, or you might give yourself a pat on the back and go, oh, that's perfect. Or you might say,
Yeah.
good, now in January, when I'm sitting on my product that I really want to get rid of, I know where to put it. I'm going to put it
Mm,
here. I'm going to give it a little bit of a sale, and I'm going to move it out because I know
mm,
that's where people are walking to the most. Um, and you can even sort of work out, and this is something called dwell time, how long people are kind of lingering in
mm.
particular areas. And there is really amazing technology that can heat map that for you. But as small to medium businesses, it's probably not an
Yeah.
investment. But you can see, because how long, my front table must be really engaging because people are really spending quite a long time there. Or I don't feel like people are spending much time when they visit here. How can I make that a more appealing place to stay?
Yeah. And what story can you tell, or layers can you add that gets
Exactly.
people to those spaces?
Yes, which brings me to interesting signage, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think that most people, and this is a really informed conclusion that I've come to, I think that most people like to be guided by signage.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They like to know where they're going and why they're going there.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you've got a busy shop, which is, awesome, and for me the most interesting, make sure that you've got cohesive, well-branded, reusable signage that you can use in those areas. So if you have a lot on offer and you've got multiple brands, that is extremely important. If you've got different ages that you're catering for, pop it in there. Engage a graphic designer or get onto
Mm.
Canva yourself and make it cohesive. No handwritten signs, and if they are handwritten, then they should all be handwritten in exactly the same way, because
Yeah.
then you're going to actually add a little bit more busyness, and that's not going to work. The customer wants ease, and they want things to be really obvious.
And
So
they want people they want to be able to know stuff, as you say, without having to ask. Because some people say, "Oh, that's a good reason to talk to the customers," but it's like you can't always be on with every customer because you might be busy with other customers. So having that information is so crucial that they can find what they need, as you say, or be guided by the signage in the store.
yeah, and it doesn't shut down the conversation. It just helps to guide it.
Mm,
Could walk in and say, I'm looking for a present, or I'm looking for a gift for a 7-year-old girl. And then you can have that conversation about, well, what do they enjoy? And, that's when your customer service comes into it.
yeah,
And if there's good customer service, then it's never going to be, it's got to working together. It's got to
yeah,
be a blended approach that your visual merchandising is supporting your product and you're selling your product.
yeah.
So these all work together.
Well, that sort of touches on what I was going to talk about as well, is that with the difference between customer experience and customer service, because
Yes.
brands often get this confused, or retail stores.
Yeah, well, let's go back to the five senses, because that's a really easy place to kind of stay when we're thinking about visual merchandising. Okay, so how do we make them feel?
Mm,
What draws them in? What makes them want to come back? What is appealing to their whole self,
mm-hmm.
And then customer service. Well, customer service is really product knowledge. And the more you
Yeah.
know about your product and the more you back your product and love your product and want to sell your product, then the more of it you're going to sell.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. That whole thing of knowledge and knowing the story behind brands. And
yeah,
that even touches on as well, like brands who are wholesaling, really making sure that they give the information to allow the retail staff to know their product or know their story, whether it's with, you say, signage, or whether it's something that gets delivered with the order. How can you help tell your story when you're not there as a brand, and give the staff more information about the product as well?
oh, absolutely. Regular product nights, and
Mm,
just even lending your product to staff to take home and have a try of it and have a play with it is really, really important, because then you're building the relationship between yourself and the product and your staff and the product. And then they can honestly get behind recommending stuff. And you know what people love? They love a good recommendation. They love a good testimonial. And we see it on e-commerce,
mm,
but we don't see it enough in physical
in
retail. It's like, I bought these jeans because they're blah, blah, blah. They've been amazing. They're fantastic, da, da, da.
yeah,
But we don't always have other customers around there to give testament to the amazing things in the shop. So
yeah,
if you can't wear it, so if you're not a shop where you're selling, clothing, then it's really important to get some samples, or even just write off some product that your staff can go and have a play with, pop it on their shelf, use it in their bathroom, use it in their kitchen, in the garden,
mm,
wherever that is, and get to know it, and also get to know what you might not like about it. So
yeah, I
that if
love that.
someone walks in and says, I really hate the smell of lemon, you're not going to go, oh, this lemon myrtle and thyme hand cream is really beautiful. You know, it's
Yeah,
like, I love lemon, so I've gone for this, but here's one that you can get with lavender and mint, because it's got,
yeah,
knowing that, just know it inside out. And that is how to make better sales, because you're there to advocate for the product. And I would say as well, Mel, you know, in your world, when people are going out to buy and they're going to trade fairs,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be more than, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
What do you like about it? You know,
So
maybe
really diving deeper into the reasons or elements of how you can, what you're why you're passionate about it, or why you like it.
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And if you're not, then find someone in your shop that is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and also when you're buying, I mean, I mean that's a whole other conversation, as you say. But when you're buying, it isn't just about you. It's definitely about all your what your customers love and
Mm,
respond to, and you're going to have a whole lot of different type of customers too. So
exactly.
really, when you are buying, considering who your customers are is so crucial.
Yes.
And now I wanted to talk about as well just trends or what you see happening in the future for retail. Like what's a direction? You talked about sustainability.
Yes.
What other things have you noticed or know that's coming?
Well, when I look overseas, there is, you know, and it is important to look overseas
Mm.
because we do have our trends filter down from the
I
northern
know
hemisphere.
I know you liked my New York photos that I sent through recently.
Oh, yes, I know. And I'm loving how lucky I am that so many people I know have been traveling lately and I've got
Yeah.
a nice little stockpile of photos.
Yeah.
Um, I think that there is this real trend that I talked about in the beginning. So it's a good place to circle back
Mm.
to community. And I think making sure that your store as a whole, not just the windows,
Mm.
are really talking to the person that shops in your community so that they're feeling a place to be. And larger retailers are doing this as all the way through down to small, the more sort of mum and dad businesses as well.
Hmm.
What you're stocking is it has got a conscience about it. It has got a story to it. And it's those stories and that sense of community that we're all driven to as a result of post-pandemic habits.
And
So
then that also taps into that your unique selling point. You know, what's different about your store compared to others because you are considering that as well.
yeah, that's right. And it's a conversation that most people are wanting to have. So I think for me, that's the biggest sort of trend,
Mm.
you know, e-commerce that's coming through from, you know, all the way up to brands like Nike,
Yeah.
just bringing it back to community, bringing it back to um, where it's from, you know, the
Mm.
heritage as
Yeah.
well. I think heritage is another really important one. Worked with a client recently who has a store in Perth in beautiful Cottesloe, and
Mhm.
the shop itself has been there for over 40 years and it's had many transformations.
Yeah.
And she talks about that. You know, she talks about the establishment of that business and what that shop used to be called. And
Mm.
you know, now where it is now and what, you know, what she calls it. And it's all the generations have been able to shop there. So think a little bit about that, where your store's located and the history of that place and the history of the neighbours and the history of, you know, the things that you have in your store. Because I think heritage is another one people have gone back to a little bit more of a sentimental vibe, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word. Yeah.
I one thing I noticed definitely when I was overseas and even I've just recently been to a few trips around Melbourne and stuff too, is that elements of home and comfort too. Like even in fashion stores, there's those elements of home or interiors to make you feel that comfort factor as well.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just, it is that feeling of, you know, just again, the five senses, bringing it back to, people want to feel something.
Mm.
Social media has taken a lot away from that. And we were all really embedded in that. And what you can't get from digital is that feeling,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
um, and that is a hard thing to tap into, but it is a trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think, you know, even there's also another trend which is pop-ups, and I think pop-ups are really, really clever. It gives you an opportunity to invest quite a little in trying your product in a new place.
Yeah, definitely.
And markets and trade fairs are really, the roots of pop-ups.
Yeah.
And it just giving yourself a go in a different community, in a different area to see,
See what people respond to or works. Yeah.
yeah, and then you know what, you've done a one-off investment, and then you can pop that up anywhere at any time, and see how you go, and really, highlight your brand and your aesthetic. And I would say invest in all the right people to make your pop-up.
Yeah, make that work.
Make that represent you and make that be your ultimate footprint, because that's something you can take anywhere. Even if your lease comes to an end and you find you haven't worked out your next chapter, well, that's okay. You're going to pop up here and see how you go.
Yeah.
And that builds brand awareness.
Mm. Tapping onto that as well, I just noticed one thing too, talking about the experiential retail, like having little activations in store and stuff too can be so amazing for that, like having a new experience. Like what can you do to either, have one of your brands pop in, or I've seen, fashion brands have like nails or tattoos going on. Like what can you do to have an experience in your store?
Yeah, I think, look, it really depends on how big your store is and how much
Space you have.
have in there. Because I think a lot of people would listen and go, I don't really have the space for that.
I can't do that.
Yes. You can do different things to get people to, I suppose, relate to the product and play with the product and have those moments in store. And I think if you're a multi-brand, that really comes down to your relationships that you have with your suppliers, and how they can help you out so that you're not investing too much.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big budget thing either, definitely.
No, but I would just
say
say
collaboration almost, isn't it? Can be
collaborate, yes. And also, I guess, like I said, a lot of people in my community, locally like to use me because I understand the area. So maybe you'll collaborate, or with Elk. We like to collaborate with different artists to do different things, and we don't have two windows the same because we're in different locations that have different demographics. So I think there's lots of different things that you can do to really engage your customer by getting involved.
And I think the thing there is, like, have fun with it. Like, have fun with what you've got, what your supply, who your suppliers are, what your customers love. Like, people want to have that experience when they come into store and enjoy it. So, like, what can you do to add elements of that into your store to make it fun?
Absolutely. Be bold.
Yeah.
Be bold. Be creatively led at times. And, even if it doesn't work, it's a conversation or it's drawn someone in, and it's given a wow even in that moment, even if it hasn't been a success. And guess what? Maybe it will be a great success. So I think take risks and step outside of, it's easy to get bogged down in this is how I do it, this is how I've always done things.
Yeah.
Because that is actually easier because it's less noise.
Stay in your comfort zone. Yeah.
Staying in that comfort zone. But I would say if you have someone come in and challenge that, or, help you to challenge that, I think just go for it. Just try it. Just who cares? Like, well, it might fail or it might be a raging success and become, part of the aesthetic of your store. So I would say take some risks and be bold.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. I love that advice. Thank you so much, Gemma. I think all these tips have been so amazing. And I think what you've finished on there, just, being bold, taking a few risks, trying new things. You don't have to have a permanent VM person work with you, every day of the year, but trying different things, testing out what works. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Gemma. I really appreciate your time and all the different tips and amazing things that you've discussed and talked about. For people to get in contact with you, obviously they can find you at TalkShop Retail. And is your website the same as well?
Yep, my website is the same, or they can contact me through Instagram, any which way is fine, or they can come through you as well, which is always nice too.
Yes, we'll share. I'll share the links for finding you in the show notes. And yeah, really appreciate your time today, and have loved having you chat and tell your story here as well today.
Thanks, Mel. Such a great conversation, and I'm sure we could chat for another hour, but we don't have any time left. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I love talking about more than retail and visual merchandising. So thank you so much.
Passion for retail. I love it. And thanks so much. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lotco Business Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to receive future episodes as they are released. And I'd be so grateful for a review on Apple Podcast. If you would like a copy of the show notes or any of the links mentioned today, please jump onto my website at thelotco.com.au/podcast. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon.